Hey, Rebecca, we're live.
Hi, everybody. We hope you're all enjoying your fabulous day with us to get going here. We have 3 more fantastic wines to try. These are another selection for one of our wine clubs. So our White Wines Club members got these wines. They are the 2017 Viognier Reserve, the 2017 Chardonnay Reserve from the Canada Family Vineyard, and our 2014 Muscat Shipment. And we're going to taste through these wines tonight. We have, of course, our owners, Dr. Richard Becker and Dr. Joe Becker. We also have our winemaker, John Leahy. And Kaylyn Hall is going to hang out with us as well and discuss these fabulous wines. And I will turn over to the gentleman to get us started.
I think Kaylyn joining us is awesome.
I know.
Well,
Today.
cheers, welcome back. So, Doc, would you like to introduce us?
Yes, to say again, this is our 30th week of doing diversions from the pandemic, and just to remember for a second how many people have worked so hard and been so sick and made so much difference on both sides of the equation. It's just worth saying a word about that. This is our version of being out on the fire escapes in New York every night at 7. So anyway, this is a wonderful lineup of white wines that you've made, John. Exciting to taste them and looking forward to it. Cheers.
Well, cheers. So I think we're going to start off with the Viognier. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So tonight, to let everybody know, we're going to start with the Viognier, move to the Chardonnay, and then go on to the Muscat Shipment.
Yeah.
So pick up your glass of Viognier and let's give it a swirl, sniff, and a taste. So Kaylyn, in honor of you joining us, give it your the nose.
Okay, so with Viognier, ours is too cold right now for me to even pretend like I can really smell anything on it. I always get beautiful, fantastic floral components with our Viognier. And then there's something that is almost reminiscent of like hard lemon candy. And I just think it's lovely and fantastic. And it's always one of my favorite things to talk about with guests at the winery is the aromatics on the Viognier.
Rebecca.
You stole all my answers.
No, she didn't.
No, the Viognier is always one of my favorites. And part of that is because I am typically a big, bold red wine drinker. And this is definitely a wine that if you're a red wine drinker, it's a white wine that you will most enjoy for sure. The nose on this, I always get honeysuckle on the Viognier. It's one of the few very distinctive florals that I can pick out. And I always really love that little hint of honeysuckle. And there's also a little bit of peach blossom on this one for me as well.
So Joe, what do you think of the Viognier? What are you getting?
Not much to add to that. I get just sort of a lovely kind of white flower note. And I agree with Rebecca about the honeysuckle. And, I think that there's a little bit of apricot on the nose.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always get the Emperor Probus bringing these grapes from Dalmatia 281 and planting them in Condrieu. They persisted for the next millennia. But in 1960, there were only 17 acres of Viognier left on the planet. And it's made a comeback all the way to Texas.
Croatia or Dalmatia is formerly or is now known as Croatia.
Yes.
Okay, but is that where the Dalmatian dog came from?
No.
No. Shucks. Yeah, I have to say that Viognier, especially Texas Viognier, in this particular instance, the Viognier that we deal with from the different vineyards, it's been my favorite white varietal to deal with. The perfume, the complexity, the palate, everything about this wine just it just screams superior white wine for drinking enjoyment, for eating. It's got the complexity that I love in wine. One of the things I love about red wines are the subtlety and the flavors, the layers, the nuance. I get all of that in this Viognier, and I just really, really enjoy that aspect. But I love the perfume of this Viognier.
You too.
It's just, it keeps going and going. You know, I apologize. You guys are gonna have to look at Facebook. Facebook just redid their layout. Every time I hit that key, you know, to comment, it takes me away from the video. So I can't see everybody's comments, the running comments. So Trish, Gary, I'm sorry, I can't see what you're saying, but I'll interject as if I know.
Together.
I'll pull it down.
This is pecan that Trish gave me
Uh-huh.
a day or two ago. It goes wonderfully with BONA. This is a San Saba pecan. San Saba is the world's pecan capital, Trish told me. And
Really?
if you taste one of these, you'll agree. Yum.
Oh man, this is, you know, ever since we started giving you, we started joking with you about the pecans and giving you a little ration about your comment session. I have to tell you, I'm really kind of liking the pecans with white wine, just about everyone.
Yeah.
It really is amazing what that does. And I don't know if it's the tannin in the pecan, the oil, whatever it does, it helps really bring out
Well,
the
actually, no.
that we want.
No.
So give me your impressions, Kaylyn. You can't just stare at the mirror.
Well,
Yeah.
well, Rebecca's bringing her cell phone down here so that we can actually look at Facebook since I've removed Facebook.
I think I may have it fixed. It took me a second, but anyway. So is it warming up? Are you able to get anything off of the palate?
Well, off of the nose and off the palate. It is still quite muted on my glass. I will say though, I do tend to drink a lot of this Viognier. It is one of my favorites also to show guests just because it tends to be quite a crowd pleaser because it is so floral and so aromatic. You do get the lovely stone fruit components on the wine, that it's friendly and palatable to those that may not enjoy wine in general, but because it has such a full body, I can share it with red wine drinkers. And so it's been a hit recently since we've re-added it to our tasting list. And it's something that even when it cools down outside, I still will gravitate to grab a glass of this Viognier over something a little bit lighter, crisper in a white, just because it is so full of body. And then after, I can't remember when it was, but Michael made the coq au vin, and it was so beautiful with the Viognier, and I was very shocked that,
Right.
the Cab Franc braised chicken would do so well.
Right. Yeah. That was
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, that's the fun about wine, though. I think, yeah, when you get to explore it. So, Doc, I want to delve down. You know, we've made mention. Why? Approximately when did you all plant Viognier in the front vineyard, and how long did it last?
We did because we liked Viognier. And, one thought I had, John, was if I just plant, the wines that would be most contentious in America, which we did, of course, Cabernet and Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc and Merlot, the competition would be so enormous. But if we could take a wine that wasn't so well known and that we loved and establish that, then that would put us in at a different level. And maybe we could be recognized. It would take a long time for the wine writers to say, one of the great Cabernets in the world is in Gillespie County, Texas. I mean, even though I think that there might be some truth in that, but they would grant us a little space for a grape like Viognier. So that was the reason. Plus, we loved it. We'd been to Chateau and it looked very much like the Texas Hill Country. There were peaches and plums and all kinds of things like that around. And it was hot and dry, and it was 100 degrees every day when we were there.
Right.
The last week in June one year. So it really reminded me of Gillespie County. Even the weeds look like our weeds. So
Well,
that's it. Yeah.
I'm going to start muting myself. I think we're getting some feedback here, but in the interim, okay, so just a follow-up question about the Viognier, when did you plant it and how many years were you able to produce it before it succumbed to ear season?
We first, I think it was part of that initial 92 plant. And I think our first harvest would have been 95, but I think our first production was 96. I don't think we made a 95 Viognier. So maybe we planted it in 93. Maybe we had a second round of plant, because I know in 92 we did a lot of the Bordeaux varietals. We did, and then we also did Chardonnay. But I'm sure that Viognier was, because I know our Viognier was first bottle was 96.
Yeah, well, that and I know we've got a few different things down in the cellar. We were looking through there, some of the older whites, not very many, but a few bottles of a few different things. And I was just curious, and I know Brett's talked about how it finally succumbed to Pierce disease. We replanted the Sauvignon Blanc and everything. I was just curious on how long it lasted. But it's also something I think that we should revisit with some changes in rootstocks. I think it might be fun to do an acre again and see how it does.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, that would be cool. So Rebecca,
that the Viognier experiment has done very well in Texas. We say this every single time we talk about Viognier, but I mean I think it's nice to remind people that 3 Texas wineries took home gold, silver, and bronze. We took home silver in the what was it, the 2015 tasting in Lyon?
Yes, yeah, that was
against major French wineries, and it must be something that because Viognier does like heat. It must be something that we're able to
offer.
Yeah, easily.
Yes, I think more than offer. So somebody just commented, Doc, this is for you. Pecans and Viognier, man, y'all have brought me a long way from Boone's Farm and pork rinds. So,
don't abandon your roots is what I would say.
Yeah.
So.
Well, to everything there is a season.
That's right.
That's all I'm saying. Okay. So Viognier, Doc, we can go back to the Roman emperor who supposedly brought it over, but in the modern era, why did it not go extinct? Why in the mid 60s were 17 acres? What happened to bring that up? Why did we not lose it?
Well, I think we had a small, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Well, Condru has always had a small planting, and right, there was a time when it did get very small, but as I understand it, a couple areas really, started to develop it for people looking for, a wine that offered that full body and that richness, but in a white wine. And so there were a number of growers I know, and a couple growers in California, and maybe some growers in Australia that really tried to bring back that brought Viognier back onto the map.
Right.
I don't know what you would add to that.
I think that's right. Yeah, a couple in California, and and I don't know. Remember in 1960, French wine was in decline. I mean, it was some of the greatest harvests ever were 59 and 60, and in that period, and you could buy a bottle of 1959 Petrus for $18. So trying to support a lesser known, less popular grape like Viognier would have been difficult anywhere. Mm-hmm. It was really with the explosion in wine interest in beginning in 1970 and just really taking off after 1990.
Yeah, and I know the California Rhone Rangers, in the Central Coast, and
right,
really started adopting it and pushing it, and that was
right.
Honestly some very early exposure for that grape on a pretty broad scale. So,
and that was 1990 probably, about then.
Yeah. So because it took it takes a few years to go, but the first time I ever had a Viognier was actually from a small producer in the Dry Creek. It was my very first time ever, and it was an eye-opening experience to say the least. And I did not have a good one for years after that because everybody tried to make it like Chardonnay. It wasn't until it was probably about 4 or 5 years later that I discovered the early Kistler Viogniers. But with that memory, and as bad as my memory can be, And without trying to break my arm to pat myself on the back and all the guys in the winery, but to be honest with you, the Texas fruit is just, you know, levels above what I remember tasting early on. So it's just the perfume.
Hey, John, I was just curious, what type of glass do you like to drink Viognier in? Okay.
Yeah, the glass that I have it in currently is so I found this to be infinitely useful when I really want to separate scent out. This I can't remember what the Veritas name for it is. I call it the song glass. But
Right.
It really does kind of separate everything out. Yeah, the Viognier, I prefer that glass over any other glass for the Viognier. For most other things, I do like my Bordeaux glass. I like my oak Chardonnay glass, that kind of thing. But for the Viognier specifically, that one for sure. Most Rhones, actually, it's the same glass that I'll drink a Grenache out of as well.
Huh.
I prefer that.
You know,
So, Rebecca, I want to ask just a general question back to our wine club manager. Remember, put the hat on. You're now the wine club manager. Why did you guys choose these 3 wines? I know we gave you a selection, but what was it that you and Brett ended up finally deciding that these were the 3 of the multiples?
Well, so we've only had the White Wines Club actually for about 1.5 years, so it's fairly new. And one of the things that I wanted to do is try and have a sort of nice breadth of our white wines. So you have the Viognier, which is probably our driest and most full-bodied white wine. You've got a Chardonnay that's fantastic, and you know, Chardonnays are kind of one of those wines where you either have people who absolutely love them, or you have people who are like, oh, I don't like Chardonnays. And I really think that our Chardonnay is fantastic. And if people try it, I find that even those folks that are like, I'm not a Chardonnay person, really enjoy it. So anytime I can throw one of our Chardonnays in, I typically do. And then the Muscat Chenin is one that I feel like gets overlooked. And it's also one that is a little bit older vintage for a white wine, but still has remarkable flavor and body to it. And again, it's also one that's slightly sweet. So that way you kind of run the gamut of our white wines. And that's really, anytime we're doing a wine club shipment, we're really trying to get, not just one type or one style of wine to you. We want you to kind of experience the run the gamut of the different types of wines that we make here at Becker, which can be difficult since we typically make like 35 different wines. But that's really kind of the story behind it is 40, sorry. But that's really kind of the story behind it is trying to get a little bit of everything, all thrown into the same box. And I think this shipment in particular does that really, really well.
I think so. I do think so. And I'm kind of looking forward to the other 2 wines. Before we get going, I want to address a couple of comments. One of our commenters, Jada O'Neill, asked, why are you all not open? We are. Jada, you'll have to call the winery for an appointment. We're strictly by reservation only. And if you call the 830-644-2681, extension 320, is that correct? 230. 230, extension
John,
230.
John, it's worth saying the reason that we're doing that is we're working very hard to keep everybody separated. So when you come to our winery, you will have a seat. You'll be at a table with just the people you came with. You'll be probably 10 or 15 feet away from anyone else. And we ask you to wear a mask except when you're eating and drinking. So,
and all of our staff is wearing a mask.
Everyone will be masked. Yeah. So that's just part of what we're doing.
And Jada, the real truth is they don't want me bothering the customers, so they've told me all of this is in place to keep me out of the main area. So,
okay, John, I want to say one thing. Address this. It's interesting that of these white wines, 3 of them are among the very oldest: Muscat and Viognier and Chenin. Some great, some 3,000 or 4,000 years old, like the Muscat. Interesting that these have survived. Here we are producing them in Texas millennia later and finding them wonderful to drink. The red wines, by and large, are not that aged. Many of them are more recent and have evolved. But I think these grapes have been in line for a long time.
They have, and it really is interesting. Every time you open a glass of wine, you are participating in an almost 8 millennia history of this.
Probus is right here, John. You have to think that when you Forget the
Well-
peaches, the nectarine.
Uh-huh. Okay, so Doc, during the 1855 French, when the excuse me for not, my brain is going numb here. In 1855, they did the classifications and
Right.
stuff. So did you, when you were there, did you feel that that was fair?
I didn't. I had trouble getting a glass of wine. They were all busy.
Well, I think it is kind of funny that we do get caught up in the luxury of wine and we forget the history of wine and the passion that goes behind it. Nothing gets done without really good, true passion. And
I'll tell you what really makes this wine great is Trish's pecans from San Saba.
the Pawnee, she mentioned earlier, they're Pawnee pecans. So if
They
anybody's
are.
interested in knowing which
Only because
of
the
small
Burketts aren't
pecans.
ready yet. But,
No, they're later in the year. Yeah, absolutely. Somebody, and Susan commented that she was back at the vineyard at Becker in the 90s. I had my first, she corrected, said Viognier at Becker when I attended a dinner and a tasting with Conoco, the company. So as she said, she was instantly sold on the Viognier. So
Wonderful.
we've had some following since then, I suppose. So, well, I think we should go on to the Chardonnay. I want to jump the gun because I've been smelling the Chardonnay over the Viognier. Actually, I can keep getting whiffs of it on my side table here. So I'd like everybody to pick up their Chardonnay and give it a swirl and a sniff.
Mm.
Oh, and Trish, by the way, said it's from Oliver Pecan in San Saba. That's where she got them.
I love the aroma on this wine.
and the flavor. Boy.
Isn't that aroma intense? Joe, will lead us off. What are you getting, sir?
Gosh, what am I getting? I'm getting, beautiful floral notes. I said white flower on the Viognier. I get a little more of the, maybe a little bit of lily here on the nose. Just absolutely beautiful. White, maybe a little white, a little citrus.
Mm-hmm. Doc?
Well, for me, it's always about when Chardonnay is great. You always get the white flowers. You get the lime blossom, you get gardenia, and it's here, John,
Mm-hmm.
and honey. Just wonderful.
I do. I get a little bit of honeycomb in that gardenia.
This has been one of the most consistently planted and celebrated. Talking about the history, this is a derivative of a Pinot Noir crossed with Gouais Blanc as a sport in nature sometime in the past. But the Cistercians began planting Chardonnay and Pinot Noir really in Germany, and they decided maybe it's a little bit too cool, so they just drifted down 50 miles into Burgundy, and it's been cooking since the 11th century. And it's very, very carefully guarded and prized, and that's 900 years of trying to make this wine just right.
Well, I'm in truth, and I'll spill the beans a little early, and then Rebecca can yell at me tomorrow. But I'm kind of looking forward to the 2022 trip in June. So we've already started this planning where we're going to actually be in both Rhone and Burgundy. With our wine club. So
yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
I think we should try to drink as many Chardonnays between now and then, so we're all experts on them. What do you think?
only with Trish's pecans. I mean, what?
We'll bring a bag with us. It'll be an eye-opening experience. We'll export pecans.
We'll have to have,
There'll be plenty of pecans all over Burgundy.
the line, it'll be filled with pecans on the next trip.
Right. Instead of exporting democracy, we'll export pecans. So, okay, Kaylyn and Rebecca, I want your impressions on the Chardonnay. And so I promise I'll stop making bad jokes.
Well,
He had his fingers crossed.
I had them crossed the whole time, baby. So Kaylyn, what do you
I'm
think?
a person that typically does not enjoy Chardonnay. And I will say that to the exception of the 2016, 2017, and the 2018 Chardonnays, I typically avoid Chardonnay. And then I learned that it doesn't have to be overtly buttery, overtly oaky to where you don't get any of the lovely floral components that the gentlemen were mentioning, or just like the hints of citrus. For me, I do get almost a bit of pear, but the oak is still present, but it's not overpowering the lovely fruity components that I do get on the wine. And this is something that I try to trick people with if they're like, oh, anything but Chardonnay. Like, oh, but let me surprise you with something beautiful. It's a Chardonnay. And so I think it's just a very lovely wine.
Trick you with a good Chardonnay. I like that.
Kaylyn's always playing tricks on people.
Well, not always. But, so Rebecca, what do you think?
So I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that everyone has said. You know, you do get those nice florals, you get some citrus. I also get, and it might be sort of that honeycomb that you were talking about. It almost strikes me as like a butterscotch note on the nose, ever so slightly. And that's kind of the only additional thing that I have to contribute since everybody else went first.
Well, come on. At least you could say it tastes great.
Not yet, sir. We were just discussing the nose.
And if I could have gotten it down the barrel, Rebecca, it wouldn't have the butterscotch.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, Rebecca, if you want to give out, we gave out the extension for making reservations. You want to give out John's extension in case you have any problems with the line?
Yep. It's extension 301.
That's a good one to give out.
Call anytime. Leave as long a message as you want.
Oh my goodness.
Because
Back to the wine, John. So
back
on
to
the
the wine.
palate now. This Chardonnay is really nice in body. It has a really nice mouth feel to it. There are different wines that we do that before I started drinking wine in the store, before I started working at Becker, I didn't really understand the concept of mouthfeel and how that changes and what that really all entails. And this is a wine, the Chardonnay, that I think really does kind of exemplify when you're saying it has a very nice mouthfeel. It coats really nicely. It tastes really nice. It has a lingering finish to it. And I just think it's really, really nicely balanced on the palate. Well done, sir.
Well, I just want to shout out on this wine because it's a wine that will help you cook. And if you're intimidated in the kitchen, grab a glass, take a sip, and start cooking away. You'll feel like Julia Child in about 20 seconds flat. And that's specifically targeted to my friend Sarah Shelp, who just joined us from North Carolina online. So Sarah, there's no reason at your great old age you shouldn't be able to start cooking now.
I have a feeling she's probably not at a very old age.
Not at all. So, anyway, what I love about the Chardonnay and the 17, the Canada family, I'm just looking at the alcohol. I always have to look at that. So one of my favorite things about this, you drink it, it's 14.8% alcohol, and it does not taste hot at all.
So I have this may be, I just have a question. Mrs. Canada, this is, Mrs. Canada's Chardonnay always has a little bit of a kind of like a Chablis note. And I wonder, because she has that very unusual soil profile for where she is. I wonder if she has any similar soil characteristics, any part of Burgundy.
But in her soil, she has Gracillus horribilis. You know what that is? You know what that is, John? Rattlesnake.
Yes, yes, she does. And I still think Diamondback Reserve Chardonnay should be a label.
All right, dumb question. I'm sorry.
No. And it's something you can really sink your fangs into, Joe. I mean, it's and before she gives me the boot, I just
Rebecca, he did cross his fingers for sure.
Yeah, I did. I'm also Irish, so just take that into account.
They're born with their fingers.
And Rebecca, just so you know, I do have a picture of me actually kissing the Blarney Stone upside down on that high parapet of the castle. So it's legitimate. So Brenda, actually, though, if you look at that Chardonnay, she pegged it right. I don't know what the intuition was, after dealing with the first little vineyard and then her second one, and she planted that 5-acre block of those younger vines, or 3.5 acres. I can't remember. It's somewhere around there, but she hit the right spot up there. And Joe, that soil is very thin and it hits that limestone underneath it. And Jody gave me the soil profile map blown up to Brenda's farm specifically. And she goes through a drastic geologic age change in that one property. So there was a lot of old wash out through there, and there's a very, very old riverbed underneath that. So she gets into that alluvia up where that Chardonnay is, and it's incredible. So I am sure if we start comparing different Chardonnay growing areas that we'll find some similarities for sure.
Sure.
So,
But it's,
John,
yep.
you were saying there's like an old, what used to be a riverbed or something like that there. Is that where that forest of tiny plants is?
Oh yeah, the world's smallest oak trees.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all over that place actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that colony, which is it used to be one of Doc's favorite stories.
It is.
Yeah, well, and and the first time we went up there, looking at that was incredible. And I asked, because we knew we had some Chardonnay there, and I'm like, why is the Chardonnay in the back and not up here? And that's when she explained, well, they hadn't planted it yet. They had some plans to, and so we went through the whole thing, and it was wonderful. But that vineyard, the first time I walked through that vineyard, you could have been in any of the prime growing regions of the world when you were in that vineyard. Certainly I felt right at home coming from Northern California into that vineyard as far as the culture goes on the vine culture and stuff, and the way they took care of those plants. They are absolutely very 110% serious about that vineyard, and it shows in the quality of fruit.
And Trish, you're absolutely right. What that rattlesnake did to Mrs. Canada's shoe her tennis shoe is unbelievable.
But yeah. Yes.
That wouldn't have did it. It was an after 5 pump.
Fang. I am not playing the word game, Sarah. I used the word fang because a rattlesnake actually bit the shoe. And
broke its fangs off.
It did. It broke. I mean, that hole in her boot was huge. So, orchard fresh pecans. Oh, good Lord. Okay, I guess we're gonna have to make pecan pie now. So, we did not go through the food for the Viognier or the Chardonnay. So why don't we do those two before we get on to the Muscat Chenin? I'm going to start with Joe, Viognier and Chardonnay, food choices, because he's chewing. And I picked on you last week, Rebecca, I think a little unfairly. So
I've got my food pairing in my mouth. Hang on.
You can't use pecans.
We did a very mild saffron chicken dish the other night. Just on a whim. I was worried but it was very mild saffron. It actually held up okay to the Viognier. I thought it was an interesting pairing, because Viognier can pair with a lot of foods. It can pair with a lot of creamy fish foods, and it can also pair, with some of the milder Indian spice foods. Just a thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So Doc, what do you think? Viognier and Chardonnay, what are your choices?
I think Viognier, like the other white wines and red wines of the Rhone, all go well with the very herbal and spicy dishes and flavorings of the Rhone region, and certainly any of the white herbal dishes I think would be fabulous with Viognier.
Okay, you're up, Kaylyn.
Okay, so for the Viognier, for some reason, I just feel like goat cheese with maybe herbes Provence would be fantastic. I am one of the few lovers of the goat cheese here at the winery. And so I feel like it's a perfect time to say it because certainly Brett has not. And then.
Oh, no. People can send Brett goat cheese. He loves goats. Everything about goats. Stop it, guys. Stop. Let's flood him with goat cheese.
Well, you send it to Brett and then say care of Kaylyn. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. So with the Chardonnay, why does my brain instinctively now go to the Texas Hill Country pecans or San Saba pecans? But also I think some brulee brie would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm going cheese today.
You are on cheese. Okay. Rebecca, you can't say I agree and go on. You have to come up with something.
Okay, so with the Viognier, this is going to be simple, but it's something that I had a few weeks ago, and I really thought it was wonderful with the Viognier. I had a just lemon pepper roasted chicken, and then roasted vegetables with thyme and olive oil, and it was fantastic with the Viognier. It's simple, but it has these great herbal flavors, and I thought they went really, really well.
Perfect. You know, so with the Viognier last week, we made jackfruit sloppy joes. So I use jackfruit as the meat in place of. So that's for our wonderful vegan friends out there. It's a great recipe. It's just basically mildly spicy, tomatoey. Jackfruit gives it a nice meaty edge to it, but it did very, very well with that barbecue edge. So yes, I'm back on a barbecue kick. It's the fall. So with the Chardonnay, this does incredibly well with monkfish. If you haven't had monkfish, I would encourage you to have some and pour a glass of Chardonnay. It's just a brilliant pairing, in my opinion.
And you know, the other thought I had for Chardonnay is Dover sole. And, you know, Michael, our chef, made wonderful Dover sole maybe a couple months ago that I think would pair really well with this.
Yeah, you know, that would have done very, very well. With the Dover sole, I think you're absolutely right. It would have. That was a really good dish too.
Yeah,
really very nice. Okay, now we're going on to the 14 Muscat Chenin, or Chenin Muscat. Muscat Chenin. Sorry, I'm looking at the label. This is the surprise. This was the surprise ringer for me in the 3-pack when I opened them up earlier. And I might add, very pleasantly surprised. So I want everybody to give it a swirl, a sniff, and a taste. Oh, man. The nose is incredible. It's been decanted now. For me, it's been decanted a little over an hour.
Yeah. How cold is yours, John?
Joe, it's probably about 60 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, you know, I have to say, I get orange, lavender, and crushed seashells in the nose.
Uh-huh.
I definitely get the orange.
Yeah.
Not quite with you or understanding the crushed seashells. Could you?
Calcium carbonate, more calcium edge. Minerality is more calcium-like. So.
Okay.
I thought you were playing around here.
No, I'm not. I'm very serious about the ocean and seashells. But yeah.
I can get that now.
Whenever I see Muscat, I'm always reminded of the first 1,500 cases of Muscat that Dad was admiring many years ago. When Mom told him that it was wonderful, but that he needed to sell it.
She actually said, "You better start drinking. You'll never sell this." So I started, you know.
So it started. Always do what I'm told. Oh, you know, this wine has aged beautifully for, yeah.
You know, this was the most commonly drunk wine 2,000 years ago in Rome for lunch, and it was cut with seawater. So maybe there was some effect of alcohol on things that might make you sick in the water supply. Unfortunately, not the lead.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The Romans mixed this with seawater. John, you mixed it with Chenin.
So, yes. So a little
We've come a long way.
salty seawater. Plus, the TTB kind of frowns on you putting seawater in things. Just saying.
Well, we don't tell them, John. I mean, you know.
But I mean, and Muscat's thought to be the oldest kind of major grape varietal, correct? I mean,
Yeah,
many of
it's one of the oldest.
many of these wines are
Yeah.
descendants.
Yeah, drunk by the Egyptians in 3000 BC. I mean, it's had staying power.
Yeah. So, how was it served back then?
It was good. We had people that came out like this. You know, so you had to be there, John. It's hard to describe
Yeah, I missed that one.
Body shots.
Body shots. Oh, jeez. The Muscat Shannon is a nice surprise. When I opened the box, I thought, okay, who can I give this to? Well, Gary, I hope you're enjoying it. You know, that's the other thing. And I have to say to the folks that participated this week, thank you for taking the chance. And I hope that you've have been enjoying this. It's a
Here.
hard thing to convince people that white wine is a good thing sometimes. I don't understand why. It's fully half of the wine world out there, and they're just brilliant varietals.
But John, I think one of the things that I'm impressed by is your ability to really have the wonderful varietal expression in all these white wines.
Mm-hmm.
Along with this just amazing palette that you create. But I think that's a real trick with white wine.
Yeah, it really is the keeping the phenolic and structural integrity of white wine can be pretty time consuming.
You know, John, it's recorded by scribes that Pliny, the night before the eruption of Vesuvius, had a 200-year-old amphora of Muscat, which he described as excellent. And so do you think this will achieve that? I mean, would you be willing to drink this if we put it in amphora 200 years from now?
As long as I'm not near a volcano. What are you saying, Doc?
Pliny died the next day. Not from the volcano. He died from the
So what you're saying is the hangovers are a real pain.
No, it's hard to breathe. It's hard to breathe those fumes when you're, very old.
I would imagine it's hard to breathe volcanic fumes no matter the age you are.
Right. Yeah. The hyperglycemic flow. Yeah.
So before we erupt any further with our humor, Rebecca, what are your impressions on the Muscat Shannon?
So the Muscat Shannon, like I said, was one of those ones that I wanted to throw in there because I thought people would be surprised. I was. I'm not typically a sweet wine drinker. If I do drink sweet wine, it usually needs to be paired with something. But I'm very surprised by this particular wine in that the palate, not only the nose was just amazing when I poured it and I let it sit for about 45 minutes, and the nose, the aromatics were just unbelievable. But also the palate, it has such richness to the palate, almost like golden raisin even in there on the palate. And I just feel like it's got so much richness to it that you don't typically expect from an off dry or slightly sweet white wine. A lot of times I know people try it and they think, or they don't try it yet, and they say, oh, sweet wines are just, sugary sweetness. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the wines that you make, John, that are slightly sweeter off dry. There's so much more going on than just the sweetness. And I think that really speaks to the winemaking process that you use as well. And this is definitely a really great example of that. It's definitely, it has a little bit darker color to it, being that it's a 2014, and I think that's beautiful. But I'm definitely just very struck by how much there was coming off the aromatics and how full the palate is for this one, for sure.
Well, I find that it flows out of the bottle as easy as a pyroclastic flow out of a volcano. So maybe that's related there.
Perfect
so
pairing.
What do you get on the palate, Kaylyn? What are you tasting?
So on the palate, I do get some really delightful, rich fruit, like Rebecca was saying, as far as golden raisins, things of that nature. But for me, I get dried fruits with muscat the floral component, it does come through on the palate for me, and it's very pleasant. It's not overbearing in any way. I was shocked by the nose, but on the palate, just rich dried fruits, things of that nature. But it's not so sweet that it's something that has to be paired for me. Honestly, I kind of like sweet wines. I know that's a bit crazy for someone that works in a winery. I like all wines, to be fair, but this is something that I could see myself just enjoying in my hammock on my porch. I think it's very
What
pleasant.
would you not
I know.
enjoy in your hand?
And the hammock is a great spot for all wines, but this is just a very lovely.
We did, Mrs. Callahan asks, what does the Shannon give to this wine?
John, it's green gauge plum.
Well,
Shannon is famous for green gauge plum in its hair,
right.
I think.
And I personally, I don't think we could truly tell what the Shannon gives unless we had some fruit turnovers.
Yes. Where's my sister?
Well, she's the one that asked the question.
No waiting on those.
Yeah, no, I also, the Shannon also structurally gave the acid to this wine. This is not a very crisp wine, but it also, to be fair, the amount of sugar that was in the Muscat, the amount of acid that was in the Shannon, that sugar kind of muted that tartness. The tartness muted the forward effect of the sugar. There's still a fair amount of residual sugar in here, but you don't taste it as super sweet on the palate. And that's, there's always a balance act with dealing with sugars in wine. And when you purposely make a wine that is above threshold of sweet, anything above 5 grams per liter generally is received on the palate as sweet. You can certainly go up there on the sweet scale, from there all the way up to 110, 120 grams per liter, which would be about 10 to 11%, which is like a port. So, and I believe that this was just about 20 grams, so about 2%. So it's just at really starting to be sweet for that. But the Shannon does offer some structural integrity to the wine, is where it's coming from. But those fruits, and then on the front palate, I'm getting a lot of 2-ethylguaiacol, the rose petal edge.
Everyone from Rabelais to Jancis Robinson has praised this in print. And Chenin Blanc is a great blending grape. And this is a wonderful combination, John. Nice job.
There's almost kind of a very kind of a darker peach note.
Yes, a ripe peach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very ripe. Yeah, absolutely a ripe peach note. So this is going to be difficult for me to pair. I have a couple of ideas, but what do you think, Joe? What comes to mind as far as pairing with this wine, if anything?
Homemade vanilla ice cream.
Oh, damn. Now that's it right there. Yeah. Okay.
Where's my nephew? My grandson.
Nathan.
Nathan, yeah. And Henry, the two of them together, they'd line up for this.
They sure would. Yeah, I second the motion.
Yeah. Homemade vanilla ice cream. Okay.
Bluebell homemade vanilla.
But made the way kids used to have to make it. That is, they had to sit on the freezer on a towel. Someone turned it. All those days are gone. We have electric, but
my wife tells a story when she was young, when she was a little kid, that during 4th of July, they'd have the kids. She was a very, very, she did not have a lot of body fat as a child. So when they'd sat her on that freezer and they start turning, her poor little bum would freeze.
Yeah, it's called frozen bud vanilla.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
So okay, Rebecca, Kaylyn,
Never a problem for me, John.
pardon?
That would never have been a problem for me.
Oh, I don't know. I think it probably would have been.
So one of the things I'm thinking, not only the vanilla ice cream, which I think everybody needs to have with this, but I also think a really nice apple strudel with some caramel with the vanilla ice cream and this wine, I think would be delicious.
Not bad. Kaylyn?
Well, I second that. But I really do. I think something spicier, a spicy dish, some Thai food, like a Thai curry coconut soup would be super delightful. Pad Thai would be also very good. But for me, I think it has a lot of pairing option because I tend to gravitate towards spicier dishes in general. So I was shocked
That would be
there might be some difficulty.
That would be good, Kaylyn. Maybe you try slightly sweet, curry coconut.
Mhm.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think a nice spicy, like, like even a vindaloo or a
Mhm.
coconut curry, like a green curry, that would do very well with you, Kaylin. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, that would do very, very well. To be honest with you, I think a cheese strudel would be really good with this.
Well, John, one thing to remember about these grapes is that both Chenin and Cabernet Sauvignon they both have a common pairage in Sauvignon Blanc.
Mhm.
So this wonderful white grape and the wonderful red grape Cabernet that we love so much, both has a common ancestry in Sauvignon Blanc. The
Well, I'll tell
wild
you
white
what,
grape of France.
I'll cook a steak and see if this goes well with it.
You probably will.
Yeah, actually, the fattiness from that would probably cut the sweet without a problem. People are suggesting on Facebook chicken with spices. There are a couple of interesting comments. Anyway, and somebody says, "Get those kids cranking on the ice cream." Absolutely. Absolutely. This is also would be a great wine as a palate cleanser turned into a fresh sorbet on a dinner.
Oh boy.
That might be a nice little fun thing to do in there. Oh, so
Rebecca, I don't know who picked this wine, but it was a great pick. This is just a beautiful one.
it was, and I'm sorry for
Go ahead and take all the credit.
yeah. I am
Go
sorry
right
for
ahead.
folks who are not joining us tonight for this. I think they've missed a real treat on this. So next week, Rebecca, what are the wines for 31?
So next week, we are doing the wines that were sent out to our Red Premier Wine Club members. So that's going to be the 2018 Culinaria, the 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve from the Canada Family Vineyard, and the 2018 Petite Syrah Reserve. So those are three fantastic red wines that we're going to go through next week. So I'm definitely excited about those. Petite Syrah, we don't always have. When we do have it, there's usually not that much. And so we sell out of it pretty quickly. So I'm always excited when we have a new vintage that comes out. And this is definitely one that that lives up to my expectations and happiness level.
Yeah. Somebody just asked how much Chenin Blanc has grown in the state of Texas, and not very much.
Not enough.
Yeah, not enough. The two of the vineyards that we dealt with yanked out the Chenin Blanc. And we used to get this Chenin Blanc that was about 30, 40 years old. The Bogart.
John, I want to say about that really some of the best wines made in Texas has been Chenin from those old vineyards. And Bobby Cox made beyond belief Chenin. And that's why I wanted you to have a shot at some Chenin if we could possibly get it. That's on my list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If we can find some, we'll definitely do it again. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry that Drew took his out. So that was and his Pinot Grigio too. That was something else. Okay, Yum Petite Syrah. Everybody's looking forward to next week. So that's a good sign. Any final comments on the wines, Doc? Joe?
I just want to say one thing, and that is, there's been talk about some sort of pandemic or coronavirus fatigue. This is not the moment. This is the moment to stay with all the ways in which we protect ourselves, protect our friends. This third wave is going to spike, and we're going to have a vaccine sometime toward the end of the year, I hope. But this is the time to stay safe, stay away, stay masked, do all the things we've been doing to get us to here, this point.
Absolutely. I'd also like to extend a thank you to everybody who is keeping us safe. So much appreciate that. And Doc and Joe, Rebecca, Kaylyn, I thank you guys for making my job easier. And I look forward to next week too. So I'm kind of excited. So for everybody, cheers, good health, and may you have a wonderful week. See you next week.
Next week.